Welcome to the Life After Sugar podcast, the podcast that's not just about sugar, but about your relationship with it and also with food and especially with yourself. So if you want to discover your life after sugar and hear inspiring stories from all kinds of people who also cut out sugar in their way, at their pace, for their own reasons, this is the podcast for you. Because when you take away the sugar, you can finally discover the real sweetness in your life. I'm your host, Netta Gorman. And my guest this week is Alicia, who talks about her approach for the first 7 days of cutting sugar, which for many of us is pretty much all that we can handle at first. Just that first dip of the toe in the water to see whether or not we can take it one step further. So you'll hear about Alicia's own experience and how she helps others to cut sugar in just a minute. But first, I just wanted to tell you that if you're looking for some free resources, then I have plenty for you. First, download my 5 tips to get rid of cravings. And those 5 tips may not be what you think they are. So go to aftersugarclub.com and download your 5 tips today. And while you're at aftersugarclub.com, why not take the cravings quiz? I created this cravings quiz specifically to help you start thinking more deeply about what triggers your cravings. And when you do this quiz, you'll get your personalized score as well as my practical tips to help you take your first step to get rid of cravings. Those free resources are at aftersugarclub.com. And also, come check out the Life After Sugar Facebook page and subscribe to the Life After Sugar YouTube channel, as well as my Instagram account at My Life After Sugar, which is where you'll get all kinds of inspiration, so that you can see that it's perfectly possible to live a happy and active life, even if you don't eat sugar. You can also check out my TikTok account at Netta_lifeaftersugar. All right, so here's my chat with Alicia. All right, so I'm here today with Alicia. Is that how you pronounce your name?
It's Alicia. You've gotten really close, but yes, Alicia.
With Alicia. And Alicia, can you tell us a little bit about your background with food and especially with sugar?
Sure. So it has been quite an experience and quite a relationship because even currently, I am an obese woman. So there is a whole discussion about the role food plays in my life. And as many people my age, I just turned 51. We've lived a life with diet culture and lots of different recommendations and lots of ways to relate to food. And I have the benefit of growing up in a time where there was less food marketing and more homegrown food. And I remember my grandmother and how she cooked everything. There was no eating out. And so I have mentally that understanding of kind of 2 ways of eating, this kind of really homegrown, very focused on old recipes, different ways of fixing food, to more of the microwave culture, shall you say, more processed, more convenience foods. And so it has been quite a relationship. As far as sugar specifically, I have used sugar or stopped eating sugar, especially when I have a health crisis of some sort. So when I was in my 30s, I had a gynecological exam and they said I had fibroids. I didn't really know what it was or, anything about it. But then I started doing research and things and learned that sugar didn't help and that I could exercise, I could do all these things. And so I changed my lifestyle entirely. And within 6 months, I went in to get the ultrasound. There were no fibroids. They were gone.
Wow.
And so that was my first instance of recognizing what I eat impacts my health in a really salient and clear, tangible way. And that getting off sugar was something that I had to work at. It didn't come naturally just by the nature of how I grew up and how I was using sugar in my life to do emotional regulation and celebration. I was using sugar for all these other things.
Yeah.
And so it was not an easy thing to do. And then the second time that I gave up sugar in entirety was during the pandemic, just because I didn't know what was happening. So I was off sugar for about 2.5 years, because I was sure that sugar was not going to help whatever came down the street. So I gave it up, and also changed my eating drastically. I did end up getting COVID at some point. It didn't impact me greatly, which I was thankful for, but also felt like I kind of had prepared my body for. And so a lot of the work that I talk about is how to, even if you're not ready to get off sugar in entirety, you really should know the skills to be able to get off sugar so that when, and I say when not to be like negative, but to say you're going to face a health crisis at some point in your life. That is just the nature of being a human being. And so if you have those skills in your back pocket, you can use them when you're faced with some of the scariest times you may experience.
Yeah, I love that you call them skills, and I'm a teacher, and I often compare learning how to stop eating sugar is like learning a new language. It's like a skill that you're not very good at because you don't know how to do it. And then gradually with practice and with guidance, you learn how to do it. You become skilled.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that. And so, what are those skills, or some of them, that you can explain to us?
Sure. So my focus is data. I'm a data scientist. I am one of those rare people who loves statistics and loves numbers, and I think they're very powerful. I understand not everybody likes to nerd out with me, but I think in the nutrition, fitness and health space, we focus on the wrong numbers. And I think we also focus our data collection on things that may not be helpful in the long run. So, one of the things I do with clients I work with is what I call 5 Ws and an H. So, we know tracking food is powerful and important, but it's really hard to get people, even myself, to comply. I hate tracking food.
Me
I
too.
hate the way that it's been done for a while. And I think, but it's very powerful. So what we focus on is a 7-day window for tracking. This is not for the rest of your life. This is just a period of time. And we focus on the 5 Ws and an H, which is what you ate. And the amounts don't matter as much to me because we're dealing with, I call myself a food decision scientist, which means I'm helping you understand why you're making the choices that you make. I have strategies to help you make different choices, but we start with let's try and uncover the decisions you're making and why.
Yes.
So we start with what do you eat? And I encourage my clients to get as emotionally descriptive as possible. And I can give an example even for myself. There's a particular pie that's made by Miss Patty LaBelle that is a sweet potato pie that I find alluring. And so when I eat it, I describe it because what I learned is it reminds me so much of my grandmother's sweet potato pie. It just puts me right there. And when I started to describe it that way, like it's homey, it's comforting, then I understood I just want my grandmother who is passed on. I don't need the pie per se, but it's just my brain is giving me a quick way to get to my grandmother. So when that happens, when I'm desiring that particular pie, I start to think, let's honor my grandmother. Let's go do something she would do. Maybe we cook up a big pot of greens because she loved to do that. Like, and then it gives me an option. It may be not be the choice that I make, but it gives me an option.
Love it.
So we talk about the what, get as detailed and as emotional as possible. Then we talk about the who, because food decisions often depend on who you're around. I was working with one client and she really wanted to decrease the number of frou-frou drinks, she called them, that she
Mhm.
got from Starbucks. And what we learned in the tracking is that she always has those alone. Like she will be sitting in the car having it, or she will grab it on her way to something and sit in the parking lot and have it. And so it was really understanding that because she was making different choices when she eats alone, that was impacting her. We also talk about the where, which is an obvious one. We talk about the when, which is really important, especially if you're doing intermittent fasting and those kinds of things. And then we get to the why, if you know it and if you don't. And then the H is the how. I think a lot of people don't recognize how important it is to be in a quiet place or to sometimes fancy can cause people stress. Sometimes eating in a McDonald's with if they have a big playground and there are lots of kids around, that may not be such a great place to eat. So keeping track of all those pieces of information. And then from there, we really try and understand what's going on with you.
Yeah.
Um,
And how does that turn into data?
Yes. So it is practically a website people go to and they just fill it out. They fill out as much as appropriate for them. I during the intake we talk about what their time is and what's possible, but what I ask for them to do is everything that touches your lips. So you drink a water, you drink a coffee, to just record it. And if it's just saying I had coffee, then that's it. If that's all you can do. If you can fill out more, that's more helpful. And so far, people have been pretty compliant because the way that the form is made, we go through it and it's fit to them. So it doesn't say like it's one of the options of drink says literally frou-frou drink because that's what the woman is trying to deal with. It is her form, it is her understanding of how she eats, and it's specific to her. And so compliance is actually, I find better than a standard food journal where you're just stuck with the blank page. The other thing that's different is the data goes straight into the database. You can't see it. Once you put something in, it goes away.
Mhm.
And so it deals with that idea of, and I've experienced this many times, looking at my food journal by day three, I'm not real proud of what's happening. So then I'm like, do I report? Do I change my behavior? And then it becomes stressful. And then I'm not really reporting. And then maybe I'm making something up. And then it becomes a whole thing. So with this process, once you put something in, it goes away. So you're not thinking about it. You can't go back to it. I don't give you feedback until everything's over. So what we're really both trying to do is get at the most honest and most accurate understanding of what's going on with you. And I have a very strict no shame policy when it comes to food.
Yeah, yeah, that's fantastic. That's very liberating. And it's for 7 days?
Yes.
Okay.
So 7 days is like a sprint. So you do the 7 days, and I'm in the process of working with a nutritionist, not a nutritionist, an herbalist who's doing a 3 day cleanse. And so we're going to do a 3 day tracking with her. Um, but 7 days on, and then once that's over, you've made some changes, then we go back and track for another 7 days, as needed. But it's not a 28-day or 38 or for the rest of your life approach in this instance, unless that's what you really want. But I find fatigue sets in and then things get a little weird.
Yeah, I get it. And it's short term enough to really remember what you eat every day because we don't always feel like we even know what passed our lips, right?
Hmm.
And then I know that nutritional studies are notorious for using very vague questionnaires time-wise, where they're like, well, how often did you eat this food in the last year? I'm like, how am I supposed to remember that?
Yeah, it is really difficult to get people to be honest about what they ate. And actually, people are not really great with reporting amounts about how much they ate. I do work with a study that's done in the United States by the CDC that literally records everything someone eats for 2 days, 3 days, and they do it very scientifically. Everything's weighed. It's 100%. So I do have a lot of data on what people eat, and actually, the sugar situation is pretty scary in America. Like it's really scary.
You don't say.
Yeah,
Tell
I
me
don't have
something I
it
don't know.
right. Exactly.
And so, would you say that this type of data collection tells us what we already know, or like what is the value of having this data?
I think it's two things. One, it absolutely reinforces what you already know, which I think can be really confirming because for a lot of people, they think they're doing the right thing and, they may be. But it also uncovers some habits that we have that people just don't recognize or know. And then it also allows me, I call myself a food detective. So if someone is eating out in a restaurant, I go and look and see what are they eating, what's the ingredients and things like that. It's the stuff that people don't either have the time to do or it's not easily done. And when you dig underneath, like there's a restaurant, I'm not going to name the restaurant, but they have a barbecue sauce. It has bourbon and four types of sugar. It has molasses, high fructose corn syrup, and regular corn syrup, and sugar. And it's kind of like I wouldn't have known that, and she definitely didn't know it when she consumed it. So those are the kinds of discoveries that not her fault. I mean, really, I think we should be regulating some of these things, but how would she know there are four kinds of sugar and that it's that sugar laden and it's a reputable sit down restaurant that you think, would be healthy. And they have a lot of healthy things on their menu, but it really uncovers things that are happening that you may not be aware of. And
Yeah.
so I think it's both.
Yeah. And so let's say you want to go out to a restaurant, good for you.
Yeah.
Right? You're not going to start thinking, well, hang on, maybe I can't go because maybe there's four types of sugar in the barbecue sauce. Like, how do you live real life knowing that sugars are hidden in just about everything? I want to take a quick break to say that if this is your first time here, then welcome and thank you for listening to this podcast. And whether you're new or a regular and you haven't yet rated or reviewed this podcast, could I ask you to scroll down and tap on the stars to rate this podcast and also to write a short review to let me know how this podcast is helping you in your life after sugar. I love reading your reviews. And when you rate and review this podcast, not only does it encourage me to continue making new episodes, but it also helps to share this podcast and have more people see it so that we can help more people feel better and lose weight with less sugar. So again, thank you for rating and reviewing this podcast and for spreading the word about sugar.
Yeah, I think that's difficult. I really work to start where people are. I can say in my life, I don't eat out regularly unless I eat actually in a lot of ethnic restaurants because they have a better sense of what they put in their food. But I had a shocking experience many, many years ago where someone was putting like shortening or lard in their guacamole.
Mm.
Like that's not a standard recipe for guacamole, but to stretch the avocados, this was their solution. And so I think unless you're going to restaurants where you trust what's going on there, I think you have to be mindful. And that's a choice. And maybe even a financial choice. But I have found like smaller family restaurants are really way more open to you asking questions and often have recipes that are in their family and they've used them for a long time. But I don't, like I said, we have a no shaming, food shaming policy. So if you're choosing to go to McDonald's, that's a choice.
Yeah.
But you should know that they have both gluten, dairy, and sugar on their fries. So if you choose them, that's what you want to choose. And then the rest of the week, because I do a lot of mindset around the week as opposed to the day. Um, or the rest of the week, you may make other choices to kind of say, I'm going to offset that.
Yeah.
Another thing that I try to do is help people have like a recovery plan. If you're going to choose that, maybe you're walking for another 15 minutes. Maybe you're drinking another glass of water. Maybe you're taking a supplement that will help your stomach feel a little bit better. It's not to say that the decision was super healthy, but if you're going to go on the dark side, add a little bit of the light side to it just to try and balance it out.
Yeah, yeah, because not going out to restaurants ever again sounds unrealistic and overwhelming.
And also socially isolating. So
Yeah.
that is a place where I think it's really difficult to be without sugar or any kind of dietary restrictions. And so I agree with you. I don't think for most people it's about being extremist. I think sometimes that works for some personalities. That's where they live, that's where they want to be. But I think the majority of people want to just enjoy themselves. But I don't know if our culture, and I'll speak specifically for American culture, does a great job helping people understand that you can enjoy yourself without necessarily indulging in all the things. So one client has a son who likes to go to McDonald's. Totally fine. But if you're going through the drive-through, maybe make sure that you have some beef jerky in your car. So you won't feel deprived. Have something that you like, but you may not have to choose the McDonald's for yourself. Your son can get it, you can have your beef jerky, and you guys can have a great conversation.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's just a lot of strategies around that that I think can be helpful.
Yeah, yeah, it feels, and I'm up in Canada, even though I'm originally from the UK, but it feels like we, in North America at least, have created this food society, this food context that we now have to struggle stepping out of.
Yeah, I think it is. I like to refer to it as a landscape because it just feels like you're navigating this unknown world where you just don't know what's going to support you and what's not. And some of that it's the reason why people like you, people like myself, who are like helping you understand what's in that landscape. We've been there, we've traveled it. We're Sherpas, basically. We're like helping people navigate, going up this mountain. Absolutely, may be required because it's a really sneaky terrain. And it's also a place where it's very emotional.
Hmm.
Food is one of the few things human beings use all five senses. It is very much ingrained in us to experience it fully. And not everybody chooses to experience food that way, but we were built to experience it that way. And so it can get so emotional and so people can have such deep shame about it that we shouldn't be stressing so much about eating. There's so many beautiful things to eat and enjoy that it shouldn't have to be our experience to do it
Yeah,
that way.
yeah, agreed. Totally, totally agree. And when people do this 7 day kind of tracking exercise, what kinds of insights have you seen them have?
So a lot of the insights are things that maybe in the back of their mind they knew, but when you present a number, it makes it a little different. So I had a client who she knew she was drinking a lot of coffee, but when I said 25% of what is passing your lips is coffee,
Whoa.
she was like, "What?" And so either you are drinking a lot of coffee but not eating enough food, or like, so it sparked a conversation. There's no shame, like there's no right number for the percentage of coffee because there are a lot of things that go into that, math wise. But when I presented her to it and she saw the graph, she's like, "Oh, maybe I need to eat more food," which it turns out for her, coffee is a kind of weird meal replacement. I don't know a lot of people who use it that way, but I think for her, it was a meal replacement because she's trying to lose weight. And so she'll feel tired or drained, and then she'll solve the problem with the coffee. But that's an insight that we got. I didn't have the conclusion or the solution. That requires a conversation and like, let's dive into it. But that particular number was enough for her to say, wait a second, I knew I drank a lot of coffee, but I don't know if this is the way that I want it to be represented in my health story. And so it's things like that. Another one is aware. So the foods that get eaten in the bedroom are not always the healthiest for, one of my clients. Like we kind of uncover, oh, there's this kind of behavior around bedroom food or whatever. So it's those types of things, but it's so unique and independent for people. And that's one reason I enjoy doing it so much because there's no cookie cutter answers in these. These are really specific to what your brain is doing when it decides it wants to have food.
Yeah, yeah. And have you found in your experience that there are certain foods that will trigger the brain to want more and more and more, and others that don't have that effect?
I think absolutely, but I'd still argue I mean, scientifically, there are definitely foods that have to do with cravings and wanting more. But I also think it can be very independent, and I can speak to one of mine, potato chips.
Hmm.
Potato chips is a food that I often consume when I'm secretly angry and not dealing with anger. And if I don't, I will eat potato chips continually because it's the crunch, it's physical, it's salty, it's all these things that help me push down anger, I think. I don't know the psychology of it necessarily, but I do know that this particular emotion, suppressed anger, often comes around the same time potato chips. And until I deal with it, somehow I'm always wanting potato chips. I'll always think that that's the solution to the problem. So, although there are things, sugar, salt can be kind of something that you'll crave, but I think I am also an herbalist assistant, so I'm learning herbalism. And one of the things that is also clear about cravings is that sometimes it's a nutritional issue. You're missing some nutrient, some mineral, and so you might try to solve it with a particular food because your brain has connected to it. Or the marketing. The marketing is pretty ruthless these days
Yeah.
to really make you think that this is going to solve your problem, and it's not actually the solution.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Yes. And it's so funny, not funny, haha, how myself included, even after all these years of being sugar-free, you were mentioning chips. And for me, it's not just any flavor of chips. It's the salt and vinegar. Any other chips, I can take it or leave it. In fact, I do. I leave it. But there's something about salt and vinegar that is once I start, I just can't stop. And you know what you were saying about the why for you, like this is repressed anger and believing that, despite time and time again, proof to the contrary, you think this is going to help my anger. Like it's
Right.
like this is the solution. And for me, Friday nights after a long week, my brain still says, you need a bag of chips. You deserve it.
Hmm.
Whether or not I actually go through and buy them and eat them is a separate issue. Most of the time
Right.
I don't, but only because I've had so many years of practice. But it's still there.
It is, yeah. It is amazing how our brain really likes a habit, really loves consistency, really loves a habit. And I agree with you. It's a struggle, but what I have found helpful is to come up with the three things that I can choose instead, similar to how I mentioned my grandmother's pie. Like once I've understood that this is where we're going, that I'm craving the potato chips and they may even be in in the shopping cart. Now I have a decision to make. Like, if I'm angry, can I actually talk to the person that I'm not happy with? And if that's not possible, because it may not be possible, is there an activity? I like art and music. Can I do something else? So then once you have that list, I usually tell people three things that they can do instead of that emotion to try. That is helpful. I also have a trick that I use with sugar too when I have a particular craving. I have a list of songs that are about sugar.
Oh,
And so I will sing the chorus to one of those songs before I pick up the sugary thing. So
oh,
like if I'm in the grocery store, I'll be like, "Oh, that candy from my childhood that I would, eat when I watch the movie, Twix is that candy." I will have a moment where I will sing the chorus. And if I still want it after, okay, something's going on. But usually by the time I'm halfway through the chorus, I'm like, yeah, okay, that was a good memory. Let's move on.
that's fantastic.
But yeah, it's just interrupting that habit. I mean, we live in such a stressful world, and I understand why habit is so comfortable. And I think the food industry understands it too, because they make so much of our food habit forming and it feels comforting. But really, when you get down to it, there are lots of ways to get comfortable, and food is just one of them.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that. Yeah, well said. Um, Alicia, if someone wants to get in touch with you, how can they do that?
Oh, great. I'm on Instagram. The name of my company is Core Harmonic. Core like your gut or your heart, and then harmonic like harmonize. So I'm on Instagram, Core Harmonic, and then my website is food.harmonic. I'm sorry, food.coreharmonic.com.
All right.
Um, yes, and so my main program is the Sugar Slowdown program, where we focus on really understanding how the role sugar is playing in your life and then supporting you in deciding what to do next. So
Yeah.
we're more like a beginners program where you do the whole thing, you get people there. We're more like a dip your toe in the water kind of program.
Yeah, yes, fantastic. Look, there's space for all shades of grey in the sugar world. And, the more of us that are there helping people, the better, I think.
I agree. It's a really tough and it impacts so many parts of people's lives, their health, their mental health, the way they treat other people. I'm convinced that if we had less sugar in our world, people would be a little bit nicer or maybe a lot nicer.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I agree. I think it's a worthy and appropriate and necessary cause.
Love it. Love it. Thank you so much, Alicia, for talking with me today.
Thank you for having me. I thoroughly enjoyed this. Thank you so much.
That's what I like the most about doing this podcast is that it gets all the different people in the sugar-free space together so that we can collaborate and so that you can get the type of help that fits you. So Alicia concentrates on data-driven input for the first 7 days, and that is complementary to what I offer, which is a 12-week program with a year of support. And that goes much deeper into your relationship with sugar. But as I said, they're both complementary and they both help different types of people. So if Alicia's approach suits you better, you can contact her with a link in the show notes. And if a deeper dive is something you feel you need, we can chat together about the Freedom from Cravings Formula 12-week program. In the program, you'll get step-by-step guidance and customized support through the 5-step formula that I've developed to help you get control over cravings so that you can finally live your life with more energy and fit into your favorite clothes effortlessly and feel confident in your food choices so that you can ditch the shame and embarrassment that you feel every time your emotions make you slip or fall off the wagon, and so that you never feel like you're on some kind of restrictive diet. If you're at the stage of your life when you're finally ready to look after yourself, let's chat. You can talk directly to me on a free clarity call at any time by going to aftersugarclub.com and clicking on Program at the top. You'll also find the link with the show notes together with this episode. So go to aftersugarclub.com. Speak to you soon. That's it for this week. Keep in touch and see you soon for another episode.